Kendrick Lamar, regarded as one of the greatest rappers of all time. His soul was designed to move the world. A Pulitzer Prize, billions of streams, a voice that defines a generation. His music mixes personal storytelling with hard truths, illuminating politics, culture, and the realities of African American life. But what if the true source of his power lies deeper than anyone has looked? What if his incredible achievements aren't the whole story, but the result of a cosmic mission? A mission written in his birth chart lifetimes before he was born. Some call it karma. I call it soul work. And when we use astrology to look past the achievements and into his birth chart, we see more than an award-winning artist. We see a messenger, a healer of generational pain, an alchemist born to transform suffering into poetry. So in this episode, we'll decode the cosmic contract that designed a prophet, revealing how Kendrick Lamar's soul was destined not just to shift the culture, but to awaken a generation, a man carrying the rare blueprint of an alchemist that turns lived experiences into living poetry. Every soul carries a map, and at the center of that map are the big three: the sun, the moon, and the rising. They reveal how a soul shines, how it feels, and how it moves through the world. Kendrick Lamar's sun is in Gemini, in the 9th house of higher truth, the storyteller, the seeker. His words don't just describe life. They question it, decode it, and reach for something greater. His moon is in Pisces, in the 5th house of creativity. Here, emotion and artistry become inseparable. He feels deeply, he creates without limits, and he turns that sensitivity into living art. His rising sign is in Libra, his first impression to the world. The face of balance, the mirror of a generation. A rising sign that draws people in with grace, while making his message magnetic, even when it burns with fire. The mind, the spirit, and artistry, three voices in constant conversation, shaping the man, the messenger, and the music the world sees today. But to understand who he is now, we have to go back to where the soul has already been. That's the South Node in his birth chart, the starting point of the story. The South Node shows where the soul is coming from, a kind of spiritual muscle memory of what feels familiar on a deep unconscious level. Kendrick's South Node is in Libra, a sign devoted to harmony, partnership, and peacekeeping. The archetype of the mediator, the artist, the one who seeks balance in the storm. And it sits in his 12th house, the house that's connected to karma, dreams, and the collective unconscious. A place of sacrifice, of dissolving into something greater than the self. His soul remembers lifetimes of blending into others, seeking peace at any cost, carrying the weight of pain that wasn't his to hold, even if it meant silencing his own voice. But soul evolution asks us to grow, to expand, to walk a new path even when the old one feels like home. And this is where the North Node steps in. It points to the soul's next step in this lifetime, the direction it came here to grow into, even when it feels unfamiliar. While the South Node shows what the soul has already mastered, the North Node shows what the soul is here to become. It's not about comfort, it's about evolution. Kendrick's North Node is in Aries, the archetype of the warrior, the pioneer, the one who leads with fire. It calls him to embrace independence, courage, and the will to stand alone. And it sits in his 6th house, the part of the chart connected to work, discipline, and daily devotion. This is where the sacred meets the ordinary, where greatness isn't forged in moments of glory, but in the steady flow of service and sacrifice. For Kendrick, the path forward is clear: to lead through his own voice, to embody discipline as devotion, and to turn the everyday into a battlefield of purpose. But there's more. To see how destiny unfolds in the real world, we turn to the planetary placements that magnify his power, and one of the most striking is the planet Jupiter, sitting on his descendant, the mirror magnifier. The descendant is the doorway of partnership and public perception, and Kendrick's Jupiter sits directly on it, Jupiter expands everything it touches. Here, it magnifies the relationships that shape his destiny. Allies who elevate him, rivals who test him, and collaborators who mirror his truth. Every connection becomes larger than life. Every bond becomes a teacher. But the challenge? To absorb those reflections without becoming defined by them. Because for Kendrick Lamar, the truest mirror isn't found in others. It's the one he holds to himself. But a mirror only reveals the truth. It's the planet Mercury that gives that truth a voice. In Cancer, that voice becomes the ancestral echo that carries history, emotion, and memory into every rhyme. The sound of memory itself. Mercury in Cancer is storytelling with roots. It speaks in images, in memory, and in emotion. Kendrick's words don't just describe. It transports you into kitchens, into streets, and into Sunday sermons. They carry the rhythm of family stories and ancestral echoes. And Mercury sits in the 9th house, the part of his chart connected to higher truth and philosophy. Here, his voice reaches for meaning. Every lyric becomes a lesson, every story a sermon. When we look closer, Mercury sits right next to Mars, the planet of drive, action, and raw force. It charges his words with urgency and conviction, giving his voice a sharp edge that cuts through the noise and lands with impact. In Cancer, that edge becomes emotional armor, protecting himself, his community, and the truths he carries. This is the fusion that makes his message not just heard, but felt, like a heartbeat you can't ignore. But Mercury doesn't stand alone. This house holds a cluster of planetary energies. In astrology, this is called a stellium, and it amplifies everything it touches. Kendrick's Sun, Mercury, and Mars all sit in Cancer in the 9th house of higher truth. Here, wisdom is rooted in memory, family, and history. This is the archetype of the ancestral teacher, where words become lessons, stories turn into sermons, and music rises into prophecy. And with Mercury right next to Mars, his voice carries urgency and force, a sharp edge that turns language into both defense and liberation. It's why his verses feel like sermons, truths that sting but also heal. But that's only part of the story. Beyond the stellium lies a rare alignment called a yod. In astrology, this rare pattern is called the finger of God, an alignment that funnels all its energy into one point. And for Kendrick, that point is the planet Venus in Gemini, in his 8th house. The 8th house is where transformation lives. Trust, intimacy, and the truths we share beneath the surface. Venus is the planet of love, art, and values. And in Gemini, it speaks through rhythm, voice, and expression. It gives Kendrick the gift of turning thoughts into words, and words into something we can feel. The message is clear for this rare alignment. His voice carries a purpose: to say the things that others hold back, to take silence, pain, and history and give them life. Every lyric becomes more than music. Every heartbreak, every deep connection, every risk becomes part of his transformation. This is Venus as the translator, turning his lived experience into poetry that heals. But even with a gift this strong, his chart carries weight. Because Saturn, the planet of limits and responsibility, presses against the sensitivity of his Pisces moon. And here lies his greatest test. Saturn in Sagittarius sits in the 2nd house. This is the part of the chart that governs security, values, and self-worth. And Saturn here demands discipline. It asks, what do you truly stand on? Not just money, not just fame, but inner stability. There's a tug of war in his chart. Saturn in Sagittarius demanding discipline and stability, clashing with the sensitivity of his Pisces moon. It creates tension between responsibility and emotion, between grounded structure and creative sensitivity. The call? To learn that real security doesn't come from outside approval, but from faith, structure, and inner truth. For Kendrick, it's a karmic task, to build a foundation both materially and internally, while carrying the sensitivity of his moon. A call to define success not just by what he earns, but by the integrity of the life he builds. This is his Saturn lessons. To turn burden into foundation, to turn doubt into discipline, to build something lasting from the raw emotion of the soul. But Saturn isn't the only teacher in his chart. Deeper still is another wound that waits for attention, one that discipline alone cannot heal. Words can connect, but words can also cut. And beneath his voice lives Chiron, the wounded healer, not a planet, but a point in every birth chart, a soul mark of pain and potential. Chiron sits in Gemini, the sign of words, truth, and duality, and it's in the 8th house, the part of the chart tied to transformation, intimacy, and trust. This is a karmic wound around truth and vulnerability, the challenge of speaking openly in spaces that demand deep trust. Past lives and perhaps early experiences may have taught him that revealing too much comes with a cost. Here, Chiron brings lessons about trusting enough to be seen fully, and learning that words can heal as much as they can harm. It's here, in the hidden and the unspoken, that he finds his medicine. Through his art, Kendrick transforms silence into song, and private wounds into public healing. This is the poet's paradox. The wound becomes the gift, but Chiron isn't the ending. It's the reminder that the wound never closes the story, but keeps pointing him back to his greater calling. Kendrick Lamar's chart is more than a map of fame. It's a blueprint for transformation. He's moved from solitary fighter to collaborative creator, from a wounded voice to a healing messenger. His music isn't just art, it's the sound of a soul doing its work. Kendrick Lamar, the alchemist, turning struggle into strength and pain into poetry.